Welcome to the United States Sports Academy and our weekly sports talk program. Today it is truly an honor for the Sports Academy to host Coach Steve Kittrel. He coached at University of South Alabama for 28 years. And this Saturday, 7 May, he will be the third person in South Alabama baseball history to have his number retired. Number 3 will no longer be worn at South, and he'll join the legendary coach Eddie Stanky and Luis Gonzalez, former Major League Baseball star, as the only 3 players to have their numbers retired. Also with me today is Dr. Brett Simmermacher, our chair of sports coaching, who played baseball at the University of South Alabama. You played for Coach Stanky, though, right?
I did, and then played the ball for Coach Stanky, or for Coach Kittrel. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Left-handed pitcher.
Well, Coach Kittrel was nice enough to join us today, and we're basically we're just going to talk baseball, because that's what Brett and I like to do best. And this guy probably has forgotten more about baseball than both of us will ever know. So we're really honored to have him with us. And as normal, if you guys have any questions, just send them in, and our wonderful producer Sarah will ask Coach Kittrel the questions that you guys have, and we'll just spend about 15 or 20 minutes talking baseball with one of the legendary college baseball coaches of all time. Brett, you want to fire away?
Yeah, Coach. I'm gonna piggyback off what Steve said in the introduction. With your number going up with Coach Stanky, the guy you played for, and then the guy that you coached, Luis Gonzalez. What are your feelings about it?
I'm very honored and humbled. I mean, it's Coach Stanky was my mentor, and he, I played a little professional baseball, a short, brief time, but everything that I did in professional baseball, I'd already learned from Coach Stanky. Great teacher and one of the great minds of all time in baseball, really. And according to Sport Magazine, I think he was one of the top 3 minds in the game at one time. And it was a real honor for me to play for him. And it was, I wouldn't be where, I wouldn't have accomplished what I did in college baseball without that. And then, of course, the Luis Gonzalez is one of the great all-time Jaguars, not just off the field, but on the field. What a super guy. Very personable, well-liked by everybody. And so it's a great honor. But I'm only going up because of a lot of great players. And, they make great coaches.
They sure
Yeah,
do.
what's that saying? It's not about the X's and O's, it's about the Jerry's and Joe's.
That's correct.
Yeah.
It's funny how sometimes those okay coaches become great coaches when they get great players.
Exactly. And because Coach Stanky, we have a great system at South Alabama. And when you get great players with it, it's a great combination. And I was very fortunate.
We always talk about here, it's a small world. I read that you were actually hired by Cliff Ellis. And he became a friend of mine when he was the basketball coach at Auburn, and I was working at Auburn University, and I saw that your first coaching job was at Niceville High School, and a very good friend of mine is now the softball coach at Niceville High School. So this whole thing kind of weaves together. You have a question?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, fire away.
Already. Coach, who are your favorite 3 players from the many years that you coached over the whole period of time?
I don't think I could name a favorite. I could just say I was very fortunate to have a bunch of good ones. I mean, I'd hate to pick my favorite players. Louis is one of my all-time favorites, of course, and John Lieber from Mobile and Mike Mordecai. It's just so many. I'd hate to name them because I think during certain years, it's just over 28 years. There's just so many of them, because in college, it's not all about being a great professional. It's about being a great student athlete and growing as a man. So it was my blessing to be able to watch a lot of them grow as young men. And now they have families and children.
And for those of you out there who, when he says he had a lot of great players, he had 17 All-Americans, 41 All-Region players, 79 All-Conference players, over 100 that played professional baseball, 17 that made it to the major leagues, and 5 of them that became Major League All-Stars. So he had a lot to choose from. And whoever asked that question, I kind of knew that was going to be his answer. And to piggyback on that a little bit, the coach talked about the in addition to being great players, being great kids. I read an article that was published right after Coach announced his retirement in 2011, and it was about 25 or 30 people that wrote one or two paragraphs about Coach Kittrel. And the thing that really impressed me the most was Joe Godfrey was one of them, a good friend of Brett's, and he talked about the baseball stuff. A lot of the other coaches talked about the baseball stuff. But the thing that impressed me the most, Coach, was not one single former player even mentioned baseball. They all talked about what an influence you were on their life. They called you father figure, called you a lifelong friend, and that really impressed me. And in our mind here, that's what college athletics is all about.
Well, thank you very much. I was very fortunate, and when you have good players that are good people off the field, it's so much more fun to coach. Less headaches. I can remember winning the conference championship on the road a couple of times and saying, guys, you got an hour extra curfew, and I didn't bat an eye because I knew there was not going to be any problems.
Yeah.
They knew right from wrong. And
there was a swimming coach at Auburn named David Marsh who won like 17 national championships. Legendary swimming coach. And I always remind my friends, my Roll Tide friends, that David Marsh has more national championships than Nick Saban and Bear Bryant put together. But we're the only two people.
Be careful saying that.
We're the only two people in the stands watching our 6-year-old sons play flag football. And Coach Marsh gets a phone call, and it's obviously he's talking to a recruit. And you know how you're not really eavesdropping, but you kind of hear half of a conversation. When he was done, we just started talking. And he said something that I'll never forget. He said, for me, the most important thing is that they're a good kid. The second most important thing is that they're a good student. And the third most important thing is that they're a good swimmer. He says, because they're a good kid and a good student, I can make them a great swimmer. And I think it sounds like that's the kind of approach you took in recruiting.
Well, I can't make them a great baseball player. They have to have that ability. And
Yeah.
if they meet those other two qualifications, I want them.
Yeah. Oh, okay. We have some questions. We have a question from the audience.
What is your best advice for baseball players today on improving their game?
Well, I think there's so many personal instructors now, hitting instructors, pitching instructors. You can get a lot of great coaching. I think my advice would be to start young and teach the basics of hitting and fielding. And to be honest with you, I almost was contemplating trying to write a book for single moms, because I think a single mom can go out in the backyard if she knows what she's doing about the basics and teach hitting for a 5-year-old or 6-year-old, because there's a couple things: stride, pivot, and just easy to teach, that they can start at a young age. Because if you can teach them at a young age, it's so much easier. Like the great tennis and golfers, not all of them, but most of them started at a young age. And I think if you get that form at a young age, it'd be much easier to when they get older, they get in bad habits. Like my golf game, it'd be hard for somebody to straighten my golf swing out. It's pretty bad.
We had a different sport, but the kid that made the winning basket for Villanova in the championship game said he learned to shoot. His mom taught him how to shoot. So
it's fairly easy, but you need probably somebody to explain it to you.
Mm-hmm.
And so for everybody, I think there's great coaches out there that help now on the side, that for a little bit of money or whatever. But you could do it yourself. It just takes a lot of hard work, and I think just don't overdo it, and don't, because baseball is a sport that can, I guess, get to you. 3 out of 10 is supposed to be good in hitting. So
if you fail 70% of the time, you could be a millionaire. When we talked about this around here a lot, about kids don't play baseball as much as they did when we were young. I was an infielder, and I used to go in my parents' carport. We didn't have a garage; we had a carport, and I'd throw a tennis ball against the wall, all different angles, and catch it for like hours and hours every day. And that's how you got better. So
and I do think there's something to that, because I think like when I was young, we played with a small cork, and I think if you learn to hit a small object, it's a little easier when you. And I played fast pitch softball, where the ball tends to go up and down. And, I think those things help me as a hitter coming up in the game. And so I think there's a lot of ways to work at the skills you have, but you have to put the time in. But then when you put too much time in, you have to worry about kids getting burnt out and stuff like that.
Overuse
So
injuries.
that's a fine line there.
You have a question, Sarah?
Yeah, this leads into the next two questions.
Okay.
First off, do you still keep track of what's going on in college baseball? And
Yeah.
do you follow South Alabama? What's your opinion on the future of the game? And then are you involved in the game still today as a volunteer coach anywhere?
Well, to answer the last question, I am the assistant girls softball coach at Gulf Shores High School. And still substitute teach there a little bit, but I help and Trevor Powell's the head coach and done a tremendous job, so I'm really enjoying that. And what were the other questions now? My memory.
Follow
college
South.
baseball.
Oh, I love college baseball. I really look forward to this time of year, following the scores around the country, keeping up with who's going to get in the regional. I'm really proud of the Jaguars this year. I think we really have a good club. Hoping we can host a regional. I think we're in position to possibly do it. We got to finish strong, but Coach Calvin and his staff have done a tremendous job, and the players, really proud of them. And it's the one thing, do I stay up with college baseball as far as am I involved in any changes, or what changes I think you said should happen? I feel strongly about that college baseball should only play one midweek game during the midweek. I think there's too much class being missed. The good students can handle it, but there's some baseball players that are just average to a little above average students. And it's tough to miss when you play two midweek games. Let's say you go to Mississippi State and play a Tuesday night and Wednesday. That's tough. I mean, I think one midweek game is plenty. I think 56 games, they could go down to 52. You could play 4 games on the weekends before conference starts, or you could, when you have your spring break, you could play some games there. I just feel like one midweek game during school, the calendar year, I think is enough.
They recently changed the rules to not allow you to start so early.
Yes.
When I was working at Auburn, Hofstra came down, Sarah's old school, Hofstra came down to play, and I read the article in the Friday paper, and when they took batting practice Friday morning, that was the first time all year they practiced outdoors. So the schools in the north didn't have the same opportunities.
And they've leveled the playing field somewhat, but it's still not completely level. I think the college season could back up even more, which would be great. But one time I can remember Michigan State came down, and in this particular game, we didn't play real well. And if you'd have watched that game, you'd have said, which team's from the north?
Yeah.
Because it was early in the year, and I'm saying, how are these guys making these plays? And our guys are kicking the ball around a little bit, which didn't happen a lot, but that day we didn't play well.
It could be pretty cold at Auburn the first.
Sure.
I remember one game. You may have been the coach. I think it was 19-1. South beat Auburn in Auburn, and it was really, really, really cold. And when the game was over, there was like 5 people in the stands. And one of the Auburn players in the bullpen walked up and gave my son, who was probably about 7 or 8 at the time, gave him a baseball and said, "Here, you guys earned this by staying here to the bitter end."
We beat them good one night, and they had Diamond Dog Night, and they had a packed house of students. And about the 3rd inning, they were gone.
Yeah.
They got those hot dogs and it was cold. I didn't blame them. But it was,
Yeah, we suffered through some cold games in early February in Auburn, Alabama. That's for sure.
I really love college baseball. I'm so blessed to have been part of it.
Do you advocate bringing baseball and softball back to the Olympic Games in the future?
Yes, I mean, I think it's the all-American, it's our American sport, and I think it's great. I think amateurs should play in it. I don't think we need our big leaguers playing in it. They have enough to do. I think this would be a great experience for a lot of our student athletes, and it might encourage a few of them to attend college all the way through instead of signing their junior year. And I think softball would be tremendous. I'm for amateurs playing in the Olympics. I'm not for the pros, but that's just my opinion. I'm not saying it's wrong. I just would love to see it for a lot of kids that maybe won't have a great major league career, but would have that opportunity to play in the Olympics for the United States of America.
You think it was a good idea for baseball and softball to join forces and try to get both of them in, or do you think baseball would have been better off staying alone and letting softball fight their own battles for the Olympics?
I don't know. I would tend to think if you do one, the other one should follow. But,
yeah.
But I don't know. I hadn't followed that part of it. I didn't know there was a conflict.
Yeah, at the beginning, they kind of were taking separate approaches, and they made a conscious decision to combine their efforts and try to get both sports back. And one of the arguments why they took it out of the Olympics is because we dominated so much, especially in softball. And yeah, if we played amateurs, we might. Of course, we do have a pro women's softball league, but it's not really popular.
You know, like our Team USA in baseball is really good. I can remember recruiting them. I went to see Team USA play when I was coaching at Beaumont, Texas, and I saw the Australian team. And one of my former players, Warren Hughes, was from Perth, Australia. And these kids were really well coached in school. And Warren Hughes told me that if you see the Australian team, talk to Phil Dale. He's an Atlanta Braves scout who's with the Australian team. So I watched him play, and I really liked him. I went up to Phil Dale and I said, "Who's your best player? I really like your team." He said, "He's not here." I said, "Can I get his name and number?" And it was Michael Nakamura, who played in the big leagues.
Yeah.
You know, and I called Michael and got it started from there, because I said, if he's the best player and not here, I really like him because I like this team, period. And that's how we signed Michael Nakamura. I'd never seen him play, but I went on Phil Dell's recommendation. It was a good one.
Yeah.
That's a good one. Ray, you got a question?
I don't really have a question, more comment to the character of Coach. As you said, I transferred after the first fall season. Really was a bad decision.
Well, West Florida has a very good program.
Well, they do, but I actually went up north first. If you remember, I went to Bowling Green, and then I wanted to come back to South Alabama. So I called Coach, and he said, "Let me do some checking, you know, with the NCAA." And I would have had to sit out another year. I don't know if you remember that. And he could have turned his back on me, but he called West Florida for me, and you know, my career would have stopped probably at that point, but thanks to him, it didn't. And also,
don't give me all the credit there.
and also, when I was in my doctoral program here, I did my mentorship under Coach Kittrel and learned a lot in that time period of 2 years, just being in his program and watching how they did things kind of behind the scenes after playing there, because I know you use a lot of stuff Coach Stanky did when he was coaching, and I can't thank him enough for that.
Well, thank you, Brad. I appreciate that.
Do you have any more questions, Sarah?
Just a couple of announcements. Oh, the Ring of Honor was started in your honor, I believe, right? The Ring of Honor over at Stanky Field.
That's a combination of a lot of people's accomplishments, and I think when I retired, they kind of acknowledged me in that, and it was very nice of them to do. Dr. Joel Urban and Joe Godfrey and Cliff Ellis. I was very fortunate to play under a lot of good athletic directors. And it's amazing to me that the growth of Stanky Field. I mean, when it first started, we played in old wooden bleachers,
right.
and it was a nice field for back then, but the stadium has really just blossomed, and we've never hosted an NCAA regional. We've been a #1 seed 3 times, but we're sent on the road every time because of our facility. In 2003, we could have hosted it, it's my understanding, but we didn't have the money back then. We were trying to raise money for the new stadium, so we couldn't afford to spend it on a bid. And anyway, we got sent, that year we were the highest 2 seed in the country, and we got sent to the #1 seed in the country, Florida State. And we beat Florida State, but they beat us doubleheader in the last day. But it's amazing to me to see our field, and we're capable of hosting now. And I think this year's team is going to be in the hunt for it. I don't know what's going to happen or where the sites are going to be needed, and Dr. Joel Urban's the head of the committee this year, but he's got to be neutral in those things, and they really do a tremendous job on that committee. I mean, not just because Dr. Urban's part of it, but even before then. And I would harass them. Boy, I would harass them. When we were on the bubble, I wouldn't harass them, but I would call them all the time, and they'd probably say, "Oh, it's Coach Kittrel." So, but it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, hopefully they dominate the tournament this year, just like they have all season. And I just put in a word to the current coach that University of South Alabama baseball Jaguars have never lost a game that I attended. So some tickets coming this way might be some good luck for you.
They also have the highest RPI in the state of Alabama right now.
I think their RPI is like right at 30 right now. They moved up from 36 to 30, I think.
And they were 22 in the latest poll, right?
Mhm.
22 in the poll I saw Monday.
22nd in
Yeah,
baseball.
that's pretty good. I only have one more question, and we'll wrap this up. I really want to thank you, Coach. This question actually is for Brett and Sarah. You know, we talked about 17 All-Americans and all the great baseball players that Coach coached at South Alabama. Do you guys know who has the highest career batting average in University of South Alabama history? Him, 368.
Well, that's for 4 years.
Yeah.
But a lot of the great players we had only
Only played 3?
2 or 3 years because of pro ball.
Well, if you stayed longer, Coach, that's even more tough. You know, that
Well,
just shows
I was hard
longevity right there.
One day we talk about a lot of the opponents that we played against. Boy, Bo Jackson and Deion Sanders,
Sure.
Rafael Palmeiro, Will Clark, and
Yeah, they were at Mississippi State at the same time, weren't they?
yes,
Yeah, and Bo
Thunder and lightning.
and Bo. I think Bo and Frank Thomas were at Auburn.
well, Frank Thomas was one we played, and just a lot of tremendous. I'd never name an all South Alabama team because I would hate to do that.
Right.
Take this guy with this guy because it's hard to do when you go in different some in the 80s and some in the 2000s.
Right.
But the all opponent team, I
You can
could
pick
pick
that.
pretty good.
Yeah, one of the things.
Josh Donaldson.
Yeah, Josh Donaldson. When I was working at Auburn, he was a catcher there.
Yes,
And
he was.
he was, and then he played a little bit of third base.
I think he played third against us.
And then I was at a conference in Sacramento, California, and that's when the Sacramento River Dogs or River Cats were the AAA team for the Oakland A's. They're not affiliated with the A's anymore, but I'm writing down the starting lineup because I keep score at every baseball game I've ever been to. And Josh Donaldson was playing third base for him at the time, and that's what they had moved him to third base. And of course, last year he was the most valuable player in the American League, and so he wrote a check for $50,000 to his high school, Faith Academy, to help them build a facility. So it's good that the
Coach
folks
does
come
a
back.
great job there, so it's good to see. It's good to see players put back like Luis Gonzalez and John Lieber gave 6 figures to our program and to help build that new stadium and other players have given too. John Bassett gave in Feb Bowling's memory. So it's good to see that players give back to their colleges.
Yeah, and I would say a lot of the folks that give back to South Alabama or because of your leadership and guidance. The only other thing I wanted to mention before we go is that in 2006, when the Sun Belt Conference celebrated their 30th anniversary, they picked their all-time teams in all the sports. And in baseball, the head coach of that all-time team from the Sun Belt Conference was Coach Kittrel. So congratulations on all those honors. Congratulations on what's going to happen Saturday. We know that's an awesome honor. In
5:55
fact,
p.m.
say again.
It's at
She's got all
5:55 p.m.
5:55 p.m.
over at Stanky Field, and the game is at 6:30 versus Georgia Southern, and the 1976 team is going to be throwing out the first pitch
Cool.
at 6:25.
Well, Coach, we can't thank you enough.
Thank you.
It was our pleasure
Coach, I'll see you Saturday.
and an honor. I'll see you Saturday too.
Thank you.
You might not see me, but I'll see you. I'll be in the stands. We want to thank everybody. We really, really feel honored to have Coach with us today. 3 days before he gets his 3 days before number 3 is retired, and quite an honor for him and quite an honor for us to be able to have him and his lovely wife here with us today. And we want to thank everybody for joining us. We hope you have a great week in sports, and we'll see you next Wednesday at 11:30 a.m. Central Time. So long from the United States Sports Academy.